followed by a career-high 4-sack performance last week, which tied a Tampa Bay single-game franchise record. He needs 1.5 sacks on Sunday, and that would surpass Mark Gastineau, Kabir Baja-Biamila, and Pro Football Hall of Famer Kevin Green for the most sacks by a player through his team's first 4 games of a season since 1982, when the individual sack became an official statistic.
Yeah, drug test needed for that guy.
Wow.
It is one of the reasons why I said if Tampa Bay was relying on Shaq Barrett, then they need to find somebody else to rely on. Shaq Barrett.
Yeah, I mean, that has red flags all over it, doesn't it? I mean, absolutely. I mean, the guy's done nothing in his career so far, and all of a sudden, boom, he hits 8 sacks, he's saying, Jay? That's, no. No, that's got Lance Armstrong written all over it.
Wow. I will say this positive note about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Aside from their week 1 abysmal performance that was just horrible all around, specifically with Jameis Winston, Winston has bounced back in the last 2 weeks and played very solid to good football. Even though they lost last week against the Giants, that had nothing to do with him. He got that offense up and down the field. He put them in position to win at the end of the game. Kicker, bad coaching down the stretch as far as what to do with those last 16 seconds, and the kicker shanking a field goal. That's not on Jameis Winston. He balled out last week against the New York Giants. I hope he plays okay against the Rams because they have definitely a much better defense than the New York Giants. But I'm pausing as far as any criticism on Winston going forward until probably the next 2 games after the Rams, because it is the Rams defense. As far as injuries, Jason Pierre-Paul for the Buccaneers is out. Wide receivers Chris Godwin and Brashad Perriman show up on the injury report with hip and quad injuries, respectively. Defensive tackle Vita has a growing injury. He did not participate in practice. And for the Rams, tight end Tyler Higbee has a chest injury. Center Austin Blythe is listed as questionable as well.
One thing I would like to just throw in there, James, I'm really intrigued by the Rams this season because what you're seeing with them is a defense which is ranked 3rd in the league so far. I know it's only after 3 games, but they're number 3 defensively, and yet only mid league in terms of offensively, which is a bit of a turnaround for the Rams. Interesting transition.
Yeah, but they still have the same problem they had last year on defense, Neil, and that is run defense. They can be game planned for, especially with the aggressive nature of Aaron Donald, who seems to only want to get to the quarterback. Once you get him shifted, you can pretty much guide him where he wants to go. But if you run at Aaron Donald and let him go where he wants to and lead up right in that hole, there's nothing there after him in most cases. And you can pretty much gash his defense for 8 to 10 yards a clip running inside.
James, what are you doing? Are you trying to match Neil with the intelligent football talk? What is going on here?
I'm sorry. When do I not give intelligent football talk?
I'm going to leave that one.
How long have you got?
One season, I thought Cleveland was going to win 4 or 5 games, and they won none. But, aside from that.
That one season, though, has ruined your reputation for life, my friend.
You're welcome.
The Seattle Seahawks are at the Arizona Cardinals. The Seahawks fall to 10th in the power rankings. The Cardinals remain at 27. Seahawks favored by 5. Wow, I've got lots of things to say about this particular game, apparently. The Seahawks beat the Cardinals last year in both games by a field goal, but Russell Wilson, my friends, check this out. 406 yards and 2 touchdowns, no picks, and had a 51 yards with 2 rushing touchdowns last week. He is the first player since 1950 with 400-plus passing yards, 2-plus passing touchdowns, 50-plus rushing yards, and 2-plus rushing touchdowns in a single game. He is one of only 3 quarterbacks, Tom Brady and the future Hall of Famer Patrick Mahomes, with 2-plus touchdown passes and a 100-plus rating in each of the first 3 games in 2019, is 5-0-1 with 10 touchdowns, no picks, in his past 6 at Arizona. Man, could make the Seattle Seahawks a lock of the week in this one if we wanted to. We are all taking the Seattle Seahawks.
news earlier today, former Seahawks tight end Luke Wilson re-signed with the team. So that should help because they've gotten little to no production out of that position thus far, and they just traded one of their tight ends to the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Nick Vanette. And Dr. Jones says the one thing for sure is Will Dissly will look like a Hall of Famer in this game. Get him in your fantasy lineups now.
Who's Will Dissly?
He is the starting tight end for the Seattle Seahawks. Yes.
Yeah,
Arizona has historically never been able to defend the tight end very well. Always start your tight ends versus Arizona.
Well, Hawkinson, week 1 for Detroit, went off for almost 200 yards receiving against them. So, yeah, I can see that.
Dr. Jones adds that the Cardinals' defense may actually be worse than their offensive line. Only Taylor Jones comes to play consistently.
Seahawks injuries. Running backs Travis Homer and Rashard Penny both show up on the injury report, quad and hamstrings respectively. Defensive tackle Quentin Jefferson, cornerbacks Trey Flowers, and Ziggy Ansah also listed as questionable for this game. For the Cardinals, their punter Andy Lee has not practiced this week. Demir Bird didn't practice due to a hamstring. And the defense tackle Miles Brown is also listed as questionable, along with linebacker Ezekiel Turner and defensive end Jonathan Bullard.
Dr. Jones' prediction on this game, 35 Seahawks, 24 Cardinals. I'll give the Seahawks the 35. I am not giving the Cardinals 24 points.
Would you give them 20?
No, I still think that's too high. I might give them 17.
Wow.
I think that's their ceiling.
Not even scoring in garbage time, huh?
No, that would be including scoring in garbage time. All right. This game,
OJ.
This game might be the game of the week. The Minnesota Vikings at the Chicago Bears. The Bears are 13th in our power rankings. The Vikings are 8th. The Bears are favored by 2. Now, usually when you see this type of statistic, the Vikings, 26 points for, 15.7 points against so far this season. The Bears, 16.7 points for, only 13 points against. You might expect a defensive showdown. So I would not be surprised if the exact opposite is true and there's an offensive explosion out of both teams. Bears won both games last year. They're at home and they're my boyfriends. I expect to see a very close game. I'm going to take the Bears, unlike the power rankings, who are going to take the Vikings. But Neil and James, you are also going with the Bears. Now, James, I know you have Kirk Cousins bias. So, Neil, why are you going with the Bears?
I just think I was hugely impressed with the defense against Washington on Monday night. Khalil Mack, I tell you. If you're a team, how on earth do you get to the stage where you trade away Khalil Mack? I mean, that guy is what a player he is. Everybody talks about Aaron Donald being the best defensive player in the league. I tell you, Mack is not far behind him. It's really close. He is a dominating force, absolutely dominant player. So I like the Chicago defense. I've seen Kirk Cousins in the face of a pass rush before, and it's not pretty. And I don't see him doing enough from the quarterback position in the face of that pass rush from the Bears. I don't think the Minnesota offensive line has played perhaps as well as they may have expected going into the season. So big game for them to try and stop Mack and all his buddies there. And I can just see Kirk Cousins throwing 2 or 3 interceptions in this game, maybe coughing the ball up with a fumble or so, and that being the difference in the game. Probably quite a low-scoring game, so I don't think Chicago's offense is by any means a juggernaut.
No.
Jay, what do you mean Kirk Cousins bias? I mean, through 3 games this year, he only has 502 yards for 180 average per game passing, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and been sacked twice. What do you mean no Kirk Cousins love? Why would you say such a thing?
I'm just saying, you're anti-Kirk Cousins. That was all I was trying to get to.
I think James is a realist in terms of Kirk Cousins. I think generally his view on Cousins is probably a fair one in terms of him struggling under pressure, struggling against the good teams. He's a great quarterback when he's playing rubbish. I mean, stick a bad team in front of him and he'll carve them up, but put a good team in front of him.
Through 3 games this season, when they lean on the run and they don't have to rely on Kirk, they look like a pretty solid football team. The moment they have to rely on Kirk to throw the ball, mixed bag. And, for 84 guaranteed over 3 years, this is not what you paid for. I mean, it is what you paid for, but, it's not the production you wanted.
That's true.
Hypothetically, if the Minnesota Vikings had never given up on Case Keenum, would Case Keenum have repeated the performance he had that one spectacular year in Minnesota?
Debatable. I think you can make the case. If all things stayed the same in the coaching staff, yes. But considering Shermer left to coach the Giants, you shake up the offensive room there. Remember, Zimmer's a defensive-minded head coach. He probably doesn't get involved with the offense other than what he wants as a philosophy going forward. And even when they had Keenum starting, they did lean on the run because Cook went out that year. That was his rookie season.
James, in terms of Cousins and Keenum, aren't they just the same guy?
Yeah.
No.
Well,
let's put it so because of the, quote, eye-popping yardage numbers that Cousins put up in Washington, he got all this hype and praise. So in some eyes, Cousins is looked at to be a better quarterback than Keenum. But when you look deeper than just the surface and the hype behind those gaudy passing numbers he put up in Washington, and all of those are pretty much mostly yardage because touchdowns and interceptions were almost even. Yes, they pretty much are the same guy. I would say Keenum probably takes better care of the football when he has time to throw, of course, like any other quarterback. But like you said, Monday night, he was just basically getting beaten and battered around. He himself turned the ball over 5 times. And when your line's not protecting you, you're not going to live long in this league. Yeah. So, are they the same guy? When you get below the surface of all the hype and the hoopla of who one is supposedly over the other, then yes, they are the same quarterback. But unfortunately, we live in an era where hype screams volumes and people tend to gravitate towards that. And I've always said Kirk was never worth the hype, which is another reason your head coach in Washington is a buffoon because of the way he railroaded RG3 out of there at the end. Granted, not entirely him. RG3 did some of that on his own, but he did nothing from day one to even try to work with RG3. From the moment he got in there, it was, this is the system, and I'm going to bash you in any way possible, because the post-game conferences he gave for both of them after wins and losses was eye-poppingly telling as far as who he wanted as his quarterback.
I tell you, if you keep dissing my coach, I'm going to be uttering "he who must not be named."
I'm sorry. I'm going to call your coach a walking buffoon from here until kingdom come, because that's exactly what he is.
You think he's the new Chip Kelly?
Neil, when your coach sticks up for Kirk Cousins by saying the reason he didn't win is we didn't win the game with Kirk at quarterback is because the wind was blowing and because of the grass on the field, I've got problems when the previous week when RG3 loses the game, you rip him to shreds about not making the right reads and the proper drops. Give me a freaking break. And I can talk about subtext being there between the difference in those two quarterbacks, but I won't go there on this show.
Jacksonville Jaguars are at the Denver Broncos. Jaguars are 20th in the power rankings. Broncos are 28th.
I missed injuries.
Oh, okay.
Anthony Barr and Mackenzie Alexander for the Vikings, and Eddie Pinheiro still has a knee injury. Cordero Patterson for the Bears. Eddie Jackson, Taylor Gabriel, and Akeem Hicks also show up on the injury report for Chicago. Go ahead. Jacksonville and who?
Well, the Pinheiro injury is very interesting.
Well,
because
was
they've
hurt
got
Monday night, though.
already. They can't have their kicker hurt. The heck?